So a member of your team's attitude is off, but their output is great. So how do you have that conversation with them? Stick with me. I'm going to go through a scenario story and give you a framework which you can follow in order to have that conversation. So I'm Sarah. I've been in HR for nearly 20 years now. So I've had many discussions with leads about having these type of conversations, how to navigate them. I've also been a lead myself, so I do know firsthand what it is like to have to go into discussions when it might be a bit of a tougher conversation than those more positive, nice conversations that you have. So, in terms of a story, let's go through a scenario, a real life scenario that I've had during my career. So I've worked with a lead before, and they came to me because they didn't know how to deal with this situation where a member of their team, the output was great. They were one of the high performers in their team as such, technically, but actually the behaviors and the attitude of this person was just not gelling well with others around them. They weren't integrating well. In meetings, they were being quite disruptive, and the lead didn't know how to actually have that conversation, because in their mind they're thinking, well, they are, they're delivering the results. So if I talk to them about this, I'm going to actually impact their performance and potentially make the situation worse. So they had avoided having that discussion for quite some time. So what we spoke through was addressing it as an absolute priority. It was impacting others around them and the culture of the team and the organisation they worked in. And also, this person might not be aware that they're having that impact. So, fairness is to be honest with them and give them that opportunity to be able to improve ahead. So I have two parts to being able to manage these conversations, a tool and a framework. So in terms of the tool, it's how can you actually structure that conversation? And then the framework is almost like that whole picture, the bigger picture of building that conversation out. Initially, it's about situation, the behavior or the issue, and then the impact. So if we were to break that down in terms of this particular story and scenario, then what that could look like is going into that conversation with the employee is situation first could be, I've noticed in some of our team meetings when we're discussing ideas, then it could be like, well, what is the actual issue or the behaviour that you've noticed? So then that could look like, I noticed that your tone and body language can come across as quite dismissive. For example, leaning back in your chair with folded arms and giving responses such as, that just won't work. And then in terms of the impact that that's having, that could be something along the lines of, so this has made some of your colleagues feel hesitant to share their ideas with you, and I've noticed already that they're starting to not bring you into certain discussions. And that is a risk because your input is really, really valuable. But if others feel uncomfortable contributing around you, then that interrupts the balance of the team. Then follow that with curiosity. My one thing I always say for any lead, be curious. It's your absolute superpower because we never know what is going on in any situation. So always, always remain curious and ask them for their view of how they see the situation. That's honest, that's kind, and that gives them the opportunity to develop and grow further. So that's a simple way to frame the conversation in terms of the situation, the behaviour and the issue and the impact. So if we look at the preparing for the conversation itself, I like to use a formula called the real formula. And the reason I love that is that I like to keep this real. This channel is all about real stories, real scripts, real ways of approaching conversations. Real breaks down into R, which is reflect. So before you go into any conversation, being prepared is absolutely key. The conversations I've seen break down and not work is when a leader has gone into that conversation without the facts and they are emotionally charged because something has just irritated them at that certain point in time. And the other person who is at the receipt of that conversation can spot quite quickly that the situation isn't right. Leadership and employees is all about trust. So taking the time to make sure that you've read the situation clearly, you know your facts, and you are feeling calm and prepared is going to set you up for being able to manage that conversation, and you will feel a lot better for it. Then E is for explain those facts. So you talk to that person, you go through, okay, what is it that you have observed? And as we went through earlier, that shows you how you could structure that part of the conversation. So it's about remaining calm, just delivering the information that you have in order to then lead on to the next part of the formula, which is A for ask. So then you invite them into explain, give their perspective, their point of view, and you can ask a simple sentence: how do you see it? How do they see the situation? That allows them the time, and listening is going to be key. It allows them the time to be able to say their perspective. Maybe they have felt defensive because they felt certain behaviours from the team that you're not aware of, or maybe something's happening outside of work that's impacting how they feel on a daily basis. There could be a whole number of reasons why the situation has come to this. That will then help you get into the next part, which is L for lead. So you've led the conversation, so it's about leading it forward. How can you help that person in the future? What actions do you both need to take in order to get to that person to where they need to be? So that can be so what can we do differently from here? And it's about being able to do that together, have their input so that they feel like they can own it as well. So if you've been avoiding that conversation, then just keep it real. Go through that formula, and then you will feel much more prepared being able to have that discussion. Don't leave it. Leaving it will just escalate the problem down the road, and it becomes a much harder conversation. I've seen it happen many times. So much better to talk to the person as soon as you can. And as I say, just be prepared for what it is that you're going to say. And I'm sure you will find that discussion far more easier than you thought. So just to know, I totally appreciate every organisation is different. This isn't legal advice. This is just my perspective and my views, guidance from being in HR for quite some time now. So it's, if you need kind of more legal expertise, then refer to an employment expert, or if you're in a company and you have a HR team, then do discuss it with them. They're always going to be there to support and help you. I hope you found that useful and helpful. Subscribe if you want to see more content. I'm just going to keep sharing real stories, real scripts, and real ways to actually deal with these challenging leadership conversations that we all have to have.